Hey, welcome back. Yvonne Wakefield's YouTube channel. Here's Teddy. He's in his brand new monogrammed scarf tee with rhinestones. And the boys also have theirs too. Compliments of a good neighbor. We are going to be reading again from Babe in the Woods Self-Portrait, which is the second in the series of my Babe in the Woods books. But I want to tell you, I was at the cabin this last weekend. I hadn't been up there since November. It's April now. The roads are pretty gnarly, but I got up there, and one of the reasons I went up there is to install this double burner bathhouse barrel. I'm going to send Arturo the photos and he'll put them up, but the first set I got from an old rancher, and it's two barrels welded together, and you put a hose in the creek and you fill up the top one with water and you light a fire under the bottom barrel, and then when it gets hot you drain it into a tub. Well, those two barrels finally rusted out, so I had to have, it was one of these Murphy's Law things where you go to fix one problem and then everything else, problem after problem. So anyway, I had to take the whole barrel system out and get a new one fabricated. And I didn't have enough time to put it in over the winter because the roads got snowed. So I went up last week. We got it installed. So I'm going to show you some before and after pictures. But we're going to get into reading right now. I don't know if Teddy's going to stay here. But last week we read chapter 5. It was Happy New Year's. I had driven from Mendocino, where I was in arts. Well, I was studying art with a person, and I went to spend the holiday at the cabin. I had dinner with my brother. I came down with bronchitis. I went to a New Year's Eve dinner at the Mormon church, and the next morning I drive back to Mendocino. So we're going to go right into that. And it is, remember, and Mendocino is Mendocino, California, which is like a really long drive from the cabin. So, chapter 6, the Art Center. Before Leona left for Los Angeles, remember Leona is the illustrator who I'm trading my stupid carpentry skills for her excellent illustrative skills. Before Leona left for Los Angeles, she told me about a friend's Airstream where I could stay rent-free. Several days before leaving for Christmas, I hiked down to this trailer. Remember, I was sleeping in the back of my truck during this whole time. That's why I got bronchitis. It was parked below the throat of a shadowy yawn parting second-growth redwoods, with snow-banked mountain passes and icy alkaline flats in my wake. It is dusk by the time I arrived there. No sooner have I downshifted the Datsun through the coastal gloom, filling that forest shaft, than I am swiftly sucked into mud, miring the truck's belly. I open the door and set foot in the same quagmire, impenetrably cementing the front and rear tires. This mud is not displaced with all my wedging of sticks and branches under the wheels, leaving me undeniably, helplessly stuck in the mud as daylight fades as fast as my vigor and perseverance. I spend the night curled inside a clammy camper shell, dreaming of a toasty cabin and dry clothes in a garbage can. Remember, I kept all my clean clothes in new garbage cans underneath the cabin. In the morning, I lace up boots left on the bumper, which are as mucky and sopping as the forest I slog through. Trailing fog like a swamp thing, I search for signs of life at the end of a rural driveways leading to ramshackle houses that are built off-grid and without permit. Architecture I am familiar with. As I wander, the inland coastal fog gets me coughing again. My hacking is the sole sign of life stirred in the haze, haloing a walkabout. I pray will end at any place with a telephone. By the time the sun cuts a rug in the mid-morning broom, I am facing a mossy-roofed, double-wide trailer. Behind a sliding glass door, a woman is posed in a half-twist warrior lunge. Her breasts, like sea anemone, droop down a rib cage, narrow as a piling. My knocking upsets her yogi glory, and she unwinds to answer the door. She doesn't introduce herself or ask my name or even question why I look like a mud pie. Of course, she says, crossing her arms over her chest in an I'm getting cold pose and pointing to a wall phone. As I thumb the telephone book, she returns to the cobra or cat or spider or whatever animal her twisted spine was channeling. I'll call you right back, I say softly to the man on the other end of the line. I don't want to disturb the woman's posturing to ask her address, so I walk down the driveway and memorize purple numbers painted on a chunk of driftwood, then redial and repeat numbers to the man I spoke with only minutes before. A man who said help was 30 or more minutes away. I wait outside on a mildewed doorstep where the woman can see me in my drowned possum pose, and I can glimpse her behind the window. Muscle cracked open at low tide is what I note in a position she holds long enough to get me blushing. By the time the tow arrives, the lady is sitting cross-legged, fingers pinched together like rock crab claws, and oh mean. The tow truck driver didn't notice the naked yogi, or if he did, he didn't let on as his engine idled before the sliding glass doors. He is a nice, clean-shaven, older gentleman smelling like Old Spice and experienced in getting people out of jams. I get in his cab. He follows my directions, then whistles between his teeth when he glimpses the mired Datsun. Remember, the Datsun is my little truck. After he pulls the truck free, the gentleman tow truck driver suggests I follow him into Mendocino because he knows that after all that jerking and jarring, the front end will need to be realigned. While a mechanic balanced and aligned, I explore, meandering down the sea bluff boardwalk until it ends at a headland. I hang a right, walking the same path I followed on a recent dark, foggy Christmas Eve. Instead of stopping to look at the Victorians' homes, I stand in front of a sign, the Mendocino Art Center. The gentleman tow truck driver told me as he waited on the yoga lady steps that this is where I might find a nice apartment to rent if I decided not to tackle the muddy road to the trailer. An office receptionist shows me the only available room. When I hand over a check for the first month's rent to this woman I'm assuming is named Mary, for that is the name engraved on her desk plate, she adds in with the receipt that there is one scholarship available in the fine arts program at the center. By evening, the Datsun is straightened out and my muddy jeans and boots slump in the corner of a one-room apartment with a shared kitchen and a bath. It costs $80 a month, but it is a bargain compared to what I'd been living in. Plus, there's all the electric baseboard heat I need to dry out my lungs. Leaning back on that single bed, I start thinking about accidents, how maybe they happen for a good reason sometimes, and I guess this latest one landed me on the right side of another catastrophe of my own making. Before my head hit the pillow that first night in Mendocino, I finished off the gorp stored in the glove box for emergencies. I was fed and warm. I was okay. The next morning, a toilet flushing, a shower streaming woke me awake. Civilized sounds as foreign as the four sterile white walls boxing me in. Over the last few years, I'd slept in a rat shack, tent, log cabin, mildewed trailer, and clammy camper shell. Being confined by sterile angles was consoling only in the sense I didn't wake up breathing in fog. Whoever used the shared bathroom had left the adjoining apartment, prompting me to get up and discover a note taped to the closed door of my room. Hi, I'm Judy. I'm in the Stevenson studio. Outside, I take my bearings, marine air, the crashing sea, a block away, vibrating the loamy sandstone beneath my dry boots. Across from a cypress tree courtyard, a Stevenson studio sign designates the door of one building. Behind the windows twice as tall as me, students stand behind easels. I take this as an omen, like the day I discovered a baby bird perched on a branch beside the creek. Deep down, I know I've found my spot. From the doorway, I pieced together the name Mary had given me, one I'd written on my sketchbook, with the only man visible in the studio, the man who vetted scholarship students. I waited until the class took a break, then approached him to introduce myself. Several students gather around as the instructor flips through the pages. "Nice line work," he says, scrutinizing ink drawings of landscapes or interpretations of wildflowers. "Can I keep this until Thursday?" asked the instructor, with his salt and pepper sort of beard, never once changing his uncompromising expression. On Thursday, I return to the Stevenson studio and stand just inside the doorway as an older female instructor positions a naked man on a human-sized Lazy Susan. 5 students are situated behind the sculpting pedestals posted around this man, who is posed like the thinker, fist to chin, elbow on knee. I try not to stare at the model's flaccid penis, but can't help it, especially after one curly-haired girl removes her sock and shoe and approaches the model. "There," she chirps, "that's better," then stands back to scrutinize the genital propped up with her anklet. She returns to her pedestal, her face as flushed as the model, who's working hard to stymie an erection. "Your foreshortening is off," the instructor points to the barefoot student sculpture. She continues around the studio, referring to the model, then noting perspective problems in her student sculptures. As they concentrate on clay modeling, I see the instructor who took my sketchbook walk by the window. When he sees me, he turns and walks away. His direction prompts my own retreat, and I head toward the door, shouldering a load of disappointment that I hadn't been selected. As swiftly as he left, the instructor returns with my sketchbook. Framed by the doorway, the instructor in front of me, I am imagining his words of rejection before he has the opportunity to say, "Congratulations." I'd been granted a scholarship to study at the Mendocino Art Center. The award meant I had to end my apprenticeship with Leona. If anthropomorphism extends to inanimate objects, then I am sure her little house breathed a sigh of relief as it watched me pack up my carpentry built. Life in the seaside village is predictably secure. Plenty of warm, electrified buildings are open to me. This life of Riley prevails in simple rituals like flicking a switch for light or heat as opposed to lighting wicks, felling, bucking, and splitting wood to stoke a fire. I didn't have to chain up a truck with an engine block I hope hadn't frozen so I could drive 26 miles for groceries. But months living alone made me skittish, unsure of myself around people. Like a habituated squirrel, I'd learned to take my peanut and run, cautious of risks up the sleeve of an outstretched hand. On the other hand, I wanted as much contact as I could get with my new teachers, with last names like Bothwell, Stevenson, and Maxwell. Like most of my art center instructor, these sages were trained and influenced by Yaddo, Bauhaus, and famed art institution. Miriam and Ray Rice were 2 of these teachers. The Rices lived close to the Stevenson studio where I spent nearly every night messing around with clay or paint. If I found myself in a creative pinch, I walked across the street, knocked on their seaside season door, and one or the other would stop what they were doing to help me out. One night, Miriam, the one who had repositioned the thinker on my first day, threw a robe over her nightgown, clenched the lusterless Chanel tight around her muffin body, and together we walked through wispy February fog. I shivered beside her, my cotton shirt sleeves rolled above my elbows, my hands caked in clay. "It's the chin." Miriam circles the life-sized human head. She examines every angle of the clay piece anchored to a rotating stand, eyeing it like a doctor, conjuring up a diagnosis that won't upend the patient. when delivered. For the past week, from 9 in the morning to noon, along with other students, I'd been sculpting the head of a live female model, and the project was ready for grading on Monday morning. It was Saturday night, and even with finishing touches, I could see my bust failing. It was proportional and symmetrical, yet as much as I plied and cut away, her features were skewed. "It's the chin," Miriam repeats and nods at the protuberance. Plumbing a double-angle scraper down the forehead and glancing between my face and the clay expression, Miriam concludes, "You put your chin on the model. It's tucked back like you hold yours, like you're waiting to get socked." More fiddling and a facelift earned me a solid B. On another night, demonstrating how to apply a mix of Damar varnish and Dorland's wax medium to seal a dry oil painting, Miriam advises me to never learn to type. She reasoned that if I did, it would lead to jobs that did not involve a paintbrush, sculpting tools, pencil, or pen. Teddy's chewing my foot. Hang on, I gotta get Teddy. He's chewing my foot. Come here. He's naked. What happened to his scarf? All right, naked Teddy. Oh, Teddy naked. Okay, so I'll repeat that. So Miriam advised me to never learn to type. She reasoned that if I did, it would lead to jobs that did not involve a paintbrush, sculpting tools, pencil, or pen. I didn't tell her I taught myself to type on a garage sale typewriter, and this hadn't led to any real work yet. Ray Rice taught me how to wire and weld an armature to construct a cement playground sculpture I designed on paper. His creative expertise raised my expectation of masonry tools I'd used on more practical applications like footings and foundations. From January through May, I painted, drew, and sculpted every day in building designed for these purposes only. I augmented my studies with physiology, color healing, and anatomy textbook. Barske's and Gray's cross referencing and adding to what I learned in studios. Each month, I painted the full moon over the Pacific Ocean, where I learned to capture light reflected rather than absorbed in the mountains. The mountains I'd left in order to shore up my art education. At the end of May, I had to move out of my apartment for the tourist season or else pay per week what I paid for a month's rent. This was fine by me. Classes were out until fall. I had the cabin to live in until I returned to art school in September, when rents were again more student-friendly. I knew I would need something beside myself and the wilderness to talk to through June, July, and August. Days before leaving Mendocino, I found a replacement. Pure Seal Point Siamese from a litter of 5, claimed the woman sitting beside a cardboard box of kittens in front of the co-op. She was drinking fresh carrot juice from a wax-coated cup, and her orange mustache reminded me of Halloween when she held that black mass fur ball next to her cheek and kissed it goodbye. I named the kitten after the Lakota Indian word for sweat lodge, a place for purification. I also took the woman's word that it was male, though it was still so young its bits hadn't dropped. It's sex, I guess. It wouldn't have made a difference anyway. Inipi is not gender specific. All right, that was chapter 6, but I want to tell you, so I was a student in a guild at the Mendocino Art Center in Northern California for 3 years, and I worked and was taught by some incredibly qualified artists. Do you have that picture I gave you? The one of the sculptures? Oh, it's over there. So Ray and Miriam Rice were actually 2 instructors I worked with, and you can Google them. They worked in the WPA time, taught me incredible skills, but this is a piece of art, and I think Arturo will do a close-up of it, but it's 3 standalone cement and rebar sculptures I designed and built with the help of Ray Rice that are actually still at the Mendocino Art Center today that kids are playing on. This photograph is in the fog. So we'll be throwing up some pictures of this and the double burner barrel. And we would like to say goodbye for now. Titty Bear. And that was that chapter from Babe in the Woods, self-portrait. If you guys can like go to my website or my YouTube and like it, buy the books, talk to your friends about buying a book, it would be great. Anyway, stay hydrated. Bye-bye.